Hello and welcome to this interview. I'm Megan Gibson, co-host of the Trauma Super Conference. Today, I'm speaking with Melody Wilding, best-selling author of Trust Yourself, Stop Overthinking, and Channel Your Emotions for Success at Work. Named one of Business Insider's most innovative coaches for her groundbreaking work on sensitive strivers, her clients include CEOs, C-level executives, and managers at top 5 Fortune 500 companies such as Google, Amazon, JP Morgan, and more. Melody has been featured in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal and is a contributor to the Harvard Business Review, Fast Company, Psychology Today, and Forbes. Melody is a licensed social worker with a master's from Columbia University and a professor of human behavior at Hunter College in New York City. Melody, thank you so much for being with us today.
I am so excited and honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that we don't talk about enough, and one of the main reason why I wanted to have you with us today is because one of the side effects of trauma sometimes is not, people have this image of people that have a trauma history as being, holed up in their houses and unable to function and things like that. But I know from personal experience that highly sensitive people can be extraordinarily successful in the workplace. And so I want to start by asking you, what exactly is high sensitivity?
Yes. High sensitivity itself is a personality trait. It's a quality, just like someone may be introverted or more extroverted. You can be higher on the sensitivity scale or lower on the sensitivity scale. So what it really means is that you have a more finely tuned nervous system. So your nervous system, your body is more responsive to the environment around you. And what research has found over the last 30, 40 years that it has been conducted on this trait is that it means we're able to sense subtleties in the environment, spot details that other people may miss, and that we process everything, our own thoughts and emotions, much more deeply, as well as being more attuned to the emotions of other people around us.
I definitely want to talk about, because so many of those things, as I'm listening, I'm just noticing like those all sound like incredible strengths to me. But they can also kind of be a hindrance in the workplace as well. So how does high sensitivity show up in our careers and affect our behaviors in the workplace, specifically related to trauma and anxiety?
Well, it can absolutely be a strength. As you were saying before, I think now more than ever, we need people who are sensitive, who are emotionally intelligent, empathetic. We need those folks in leadership positions. But anything taken to an extreme can become a hindrance. And most of us are not even aware that we're highly sensitive. I didn't find out there was a term for it until I was an adult. And so we don't learn the tools of how to manage ourselves and how to really bring out the best in our qualities. So even our strengths can have a shadow side if they're not channeled correctly. So high sensitivity in particular, I was talking about the depth of processing. So we think more deeply, we're noticing more details, we're taking in more information from the environment around us. But that can lead to overthinking things. That can lead to seeing all sides of the situation, so much so that you fall into analysis paralysis, for example, or that you are so self-aware that you become self-conscious of your behavior and maybe even insecure because you have been told your whole life to stop being so sensitive. So you start to deny that part of yourself. And we can become more overstimulated more quickly. We're picking up on other people's energy around us. So if you're in a highly stressful environment, in a toxic environment with a lot of negativity, you're like a sponge for that if you're not well boundaried.
And have some like rituals in place to take care of yourself after all that overload, right?
Yes, exactly.
And not a lot of people have the luxury in their workplace of being able to take a break. Like I think about like first responders, somebody who's sensitive that's in a work environment where they're unable to set a lot of boundaries. There are not a lot of things within their control, and that can be incredibly intense, huh?
It can be tough. 1 in 5 people is highly sensitive. So we're about 20-30% of the population, but the world is not made for or by us for the most part. So it's made for the other 80% of people.
And the other thing I was thinking while you were talking about it is also maybe a a low tolerance for people who don't recognize patterns as quickly as highly sensitive people do because they're taking in all of that information. Have you found that to be true?
Yes. As sensitive people, we have very high intuition. It's almost like our sixth sense because we are taking in so much more. We have such a well of wisdom and knowledge and data to pull from that informs our decisions. And so just as you were saying, sensitive people are often the canary in the coal mine. So I hear from folks all the time that I'm the one on my team who will point out a risk I see down the road or why I don't think something will work. And often they can become branded as the person who's the naysayer or who's being difficult as a result of that.
Absolutely. And then that, sometimes that pattern recognition is so frustrating because it almost feels like a clairvoyance. You're like, how can you not see how this is going to fall apart and become a disaster?
Yes.
And other people might not value that. And they also just don't see it. They're like, I don't see the problem. I haven't noticed that pattern. And you're like, how could you not?
Yeah. And that's why I think it's so important that we as sensitive people learn to re-strengthen, trust that intuition again, because for so many of us, we've tamped that voice down over time. We've looked at external cues and external sources to say we're okay or what direction we should go. But that intuition is tremendously powerful, but we do need to back it up with data, whether that's anecdotal from your experience. Here's what's happened to me before when we took this direction. It's from outside your industry. It's another stakeholder's opinion, what have you. But it is important that we back that up with data so that other people can see the value of what we're sharing.
Oh, that's an excellent point, right? Because that intuition, you made two great points there, that the intuition, when our intuition and sensitivity in gathering our own kind of data and pattern of behaviors isn't valued or isn't reflected or isn't, I can't think of the word right now, but validated perhaps, then that I'm sure that can kind of bleed into this overthinking that you're thinking about, where you don't trust your own intuition that has become so valuable to you and is, your own personal superpower. If nobody else is valuing it or validating it, can really cause you to question your own intuition, I bet.
100%. I also see a lot of outsourcing our decision making. And I know I have fallen into this trap a lot in my life where if we don't trust ourselves, then we look to other people. Whenever we have to make a decision, you may ask everyone else in your life, your spouse, your friends, the Uber driver, to say, well, what do you think I should do? Please tell me what you think I should do, rather than really practicing that discernment of what do I want and how do I go from there.
This material in an excerpt from a longer podcast or video. Follow link in description to learn more.